Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. Perry asked me to do a presentation here on something, and I chose to do a little bit on some of our recent fossil finds in these Kootenays. So one of the first things I'm going to talk about is some of the weird creatures that the ROM dug out of Marble Canyon. We didn't discover them, but I think they're worth talking about a little bit. And for those of you that haven't been online to see some of them, I think they're worth looking at. So just to let you know, I am working with a ROM again. We are sending all our Tuzoia samples from the museum to them because it appears that there's some different species at the rifle range. So we'll wait to see what comes out of that. But I've got a couple of photos to show you later on in the presentation on that. I might touch on it a bit later. Anyway, without further ado, we'll just go on to the slides. And can you see the full screen, or is there any?
Looks great.
Yep. Anyway, just a couple of things to start off with. I know T-Rex hates doing push-ups for obvious reasons. Here's the climate change symposium in 72 million BC. And you see the dinosaur that's speaking, he's talking about climate change. And here we are in the symposium in 2021, and we're still talking extinction and climate change. So not a lot have changed in 70 million years, but we're getting there, I think. So recent fossil discoveries in these Kootenays. Here's a field trip that I led back in 2019. We went up the Bull River to kilometer 62, which is an Ordovician site. And there's some of the participants there. And unfortunately, we hit a really rainy weekend and everybody got soaked, but they loved it. Anyway, the ongoing research right now is the Burgess shales, including Marble Canyon. And that's done by Dr. Crown, Dr. Gaines, Dr. Mangano, and some others. And here's a little bit on Marble Canyon. This is what the rock looks like. This is a photo taken on one of the first benches where they started finding the fossils. And to give you an orientation of where they are, you see the arrow to the right, the Burgess shales, Stanley Glacier down at the bottom, and within a stone's throw of Stanley Glacier is Marble Canyon. And that's how they found Marble Canyon, actually, is that they were at Stanley, and Dr. Caron looked across the valley and realized that there was the same rock formation over there, and decided to check it out, and then they stumbled across all those great fossils. And here's basically the research team. Dr. Caron on the very left, Dr. Gaines here in the middle, and Dr. Mangano on the right. And Mangano is a trace fossil expert. So the Marble Canyon Burgess shales suite of fossils, basically 508 million years old. Part of the Cambrian explosion, they found 50 species in 15 days, 13 which were new. So far, they have 61 species in all. 22% of them are new species. And it was suggested that it's equivalent, if not better, than the Burgess site. And of course, it was discovered in 2012. And just in the scheme of things, here's where it sits in the ages of the rock. And making sense of the Cambrian explosion. Now, we have to realize here that it's not just great fossils. There was a lot of study done on these things. Some of these things appeared in the Burgess, of course, but this particular finding in the Marble Canyon more than expressed some of the earlier ideas. So right at this juncture, we find more experimentation of body form. We find, and keep in mind, this is in the Burgess as well. We find the first eyes, first mouths, first guts, heart, and liver, first example of hunting strategies, first maternal care, and I'll show you a photo later of what was found. And overall, between Burgess and Marble now, there's over 200 species, likely more to be discovered. When I last spoke to Dr. Gaines, he had hiked up to the Talus slopes, slightly higher above where the bench where they were working on. And he said there was fossils scattered everywhere, and they'd like to go back and have another look. All the major phylum appeared and no new ones since, and I've listed them all here. I won't read them out to you, but it appears that all the phylums that were ever alive on this planet started in the Cambrian. And these body forms have changed, of course, over the years, but the phylums are still around. So pretty amazing. So one of the first oddball things showing the arms and walking legs and all kinds of new structures was a Mollisonia, and this is one of the fossils from Marble, but here it is reconstructed, and you can see that it has these pincers in the front, those bulbous eyes and walking legs, and mouthpieces there that look like pincers, and an armored body. Again, it had all the features that were brand new in the faunal world. Here is another weird species. This was originally thought maybe another candidate for a backbone, but it turned out it was just a worm. But this particular worm had these pincers in the front, and here's what the fossil looks like. Has these chitinous type teeth structures in the front, which is unusual for a worm again. The Yanuic Kootenays, again, this is a brand new species, and this shows some of the larger animal forms that started predation. And this is a reconstruction of the Yanuic, and you can see again it has the swimmerets, large feelers and eyes tucked in under the carapace there, and walking legs and grasping features. Again, shows a lot of the new features. Now here's an oddball one. They call this the Cambrorastor falcatus, and the way it got its name is because it reminded Joe Mosiak was one of the grad students working up there, and it reminded him of the Millennium Falcon, so they adopted that name. But again, if you look at the mouthpiece, it sort of resembles the mouthpiece in the Anomalocaris, and here's kind of a artist's conception of it. Again, it was a larger animal. Again, predatory features. And the largest one of all, they named it the Titanochorus gainesi after Bob Gaines, Dr. Bob Gaines that's worked on there, and it's even larger. Not quite as big as the Anomalocaris, but fairly large. And again, same kind of Millennium Falcon body shape. And here's the reconstructed part. Now, you'll see, again, it has all those features, and the mouth part like the Anomalocaris, the heavy carapace and shield and armor, and the swimming features, and these grasping arms. So predation became a big thing there, and all those little critters all of a sudden had to worry about what was chasing them. And here's Bob Gaines with, he's not pointing at the Titanochorus, but he's pretty happy that they named it after him, I guess. So here's a little video of the Titanochorus chasing some of the smaller critters. Now, I don't believe they have found an anomalocaris in Marble Canyon yet. So anyway, here's another specimen. This is, again, one of these large pincers, heavy carapace, walking appendages, and it's called a Teucomia. And here's what it's reconstructed like. But I show this one because it has that shielded body, and it sort of resembles the taco shell, like the Tuzoia that we find in the Rifle Range and in the Burgess. So it had but this reconstruction, you can see it has pincers on all the walking legs and the swimming features at the back, pincers up front, and they look pretty ominous there. Huge pincers, even though the animal for its size was small. But it kind of resembles a Tuzoia. Now, this is a Tuzoia from the Burgess. You notice the spines are basically along the bottom and the lateral segment there. And here's what we have in the Cranbrook ones. Now, this is oriented the correct way. So this would be the spines that you see on top are there, and that would be the dorsal side. The rounded side would be the bottom side. What hasn't happened in Cranbrook is that the soft body parts haven't been preserved. But you can see the shell is well preserved and the spines show up pretty nicely. Here's another one of our specimens from the Rifle Range. This one has spines all the way around. So this is definitely a different species, and shows the ridge in the middle of the body. But again, no soft parts preserved. So I show those because, we're going to be doing some more of that work on the Tuzoia from the Rifle Range. So the ROM and the researchers there might come up with some more stuff. This is a picture of the Waptia, but this was found in the Burgess, and it was re-looked at again when they found some signs of eggs in some other species. And Dr. Karan re-looked at this and photographed it under x-rays, and it turns out that it's got eggs stashed under its carapace, and they show up in pink here in the altered colored photo. So there's a schematic of what it would have looked like protecting the eggs. So here we find evidence in both the Burgess and Marble Canyon of maternal care, which is again a first in animals. And here's another crazy looking creature. At first they thought it was like a sea anemone type animal anchored to the bottom, but it turns out that it never was anchored to the bottom. It actually moved, either with a floating motion or this long tongue that you see in the front, and propelled itself along. But it would they've found specimens that show it laying down in the silt, and it appears that it left a track the way this one is showing in this photograph. So they think it moved by pulling itself along the seafloor. Again, a strange kind of adaptation. Here's the Piquia, which originally Dr. Morris, I believe it was, decided that it was our ancestral backbone animal. And it was a candidate for the vertebrate, for an early vertebrate for a very long time, except that at Marble Canyon, they found the Metaspergina, which is a better candidate for a backbone. This fossil doesn't show it very well. It's the only picture I was able to find, but here's a reconstruction of it. And this appears to be one of our earliest ancestors. Again, thinking changes on some of the discoveries, so the Marble Canyon has been a real treasure as far as new thoughts on evolution go. The second part of this presentation, I want to talk a little bit about the Bull River Ordovician. So some of you have been up there. I know that a few of you have been to kilometer 57, which is the Devonian Reef, but we've been spending some time in the Ordovician, and it's been fairly fruitful. I know we've pulled some stuff out of there before, but here we are again at the site that we called the quarry, but we've also explored some talus slopes further up the Quinn Basin, and there's some really nice corals and stuff in situ and some stuff that we've picked up, and I think it's worth exploring more. But I'll just show you a couple of the things that we've run across. Bear with me here. Here's the geological map, and we're looking at an area, and I'll just turn on my pointer here. So you'll see that we're working in this area right in here. And as we go up Quinn Creek now, you see the Ordovician shows up along the road all the way up here. We found some talus slopes in there that have some amazing fossils, mostly corals. So this light blue is where we've been focusing up the Bull River instead of the Devonian down here that we always thought was pretty much one of the best sites. But again, there's other stuff there. So I'm having a bit of a problem with my mouse here, so just gonna have to can't seem to get rid of it here. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so here we are again, just pointing out where we are in the ages. And one of the first things we notice at the quarry is all this burrow modeling, and there's a number of species there, and you can see this burrow modeling everywhere. And this is one particular species that's left its trace of the wormholes, but there's at least two others, distinctive different species that leave wormholes. Of course, without the soft-bodied parts not preserved, we have no idea what they are. But Howard Allen had some suggestions on naming these because he's seen them before in other limestone and Ordovician sites. I just didn't record them, but I'll, if anybody's interested, I'll get the names for you. But we have found a lot of orthocone nautiloids. And this one here is a very, it's well preserved. Part of the outer shell is missing, but it's almost complete and it's fairly large. This one's about 35 centimeters long. Very nice specimen. We had to cut it out of the rock, but there it is after we cut it out and washed it up a little bit. And after that, well, there we are cutting it out actually. The big power saw. And here's a labeling of what you're looking at. So what you see there is the segmentations. The dark spots were the cameral deposits. These little white lines were the septums or the chambers. And this schematic shows up very clearly in all the specimens we've cut. So here's a partial one. We find a lot of partial specimens, but this shows up very nicely here. So the animal would die, the cavity, the soft-bodied cavity would rot away or be eaten. It looks like these worm borings might have gone in and eaten the body, but then it would fill up with silt, and eventually the calcite would take it over and form the limestone, and they look like this when they're cut in half. So we have quite a number of those now. We've between the 5 or 6 of us have collected up there, we probably got at least a dozen of them. Here's a Favosides type coral. Again, we're finding a number of these. This one is just a nodule that came out in 3D. There's a close-up of it. You'll see the hexagonal cells in there. And that's what it looks like in elevation. So these stems grew up as the coral grew. Here's a Favosites type coral. This was one we picked up out of the creek bed, but again, I couldn't determine whether it was Devonian or Ordovician, but it looks like it's probably Ordovician. Very nice specimen. We cut that, but the weathered features sort of disappear a little bit in the fresh cut. Here's one of my favorites. These are Helicites or chain corals. This is a river cobble, but you can see the distinct definition of it. But we've also found quite a number of them that have weathered out of the talus slopes, and they kind of look like that from the side, and like that from the top. And there's a close-up. And these are quite dramatic too, because the limestone weathers away and leaves this more salacious coral body left it there. And some of them, if you look closely, you can see some of the features, the internal features like the septa and so on. So well preserved. I took the liberty of cutting one little cobble up and polishing it. I didn't do a very good job of polishing it, but again, they're probably good enough to make jewelry out of if you want to find some better pieces. And these are cobbles that we just pulled out of the creek bed. Here's another colony coral of some sort. Don't know what it is exactly, but again, it's those cells grow upward. And this one almost came out in 3D, but I didn't want to smash it, so I took what I could, and I'll try and get it prepped a little better later. The one thing we did not find is any evidence of conodonts at this site. Now, in the other Beaverfoot formation, by the way, the formation we're looking at is the Beaverfoot. The other Beaverfoot formation that is close by to here is in at White Swan Lake, and there the conodonts appear along with some other creatures, but of course these are being microscopic, they're hard to see, but we never saw any evidence here on the Bull River Beaverfoot, which is unfortunate because we would have loved to have found some. The next site I'm taking you to is down by Lake Koocanusa. We're looking at the Shepherd Formation, and this is 1.6 billion years old. Basically, this was discovered because of road cuts, and Andy Randall, who's doing some geological work down there, mostly exploring for economic minerals, copper, etc., found these. And since the road has been built, they've weathered out even better. And we're looking at some amazing stromatolites. And there's one there. And that's just one cap. So this thing is like 3 meters across, and that's one single organism. That's not the only one. There's a number of them. Here's another one that's spalling a little bit. Again, you can see the curvature up top of above Andy's head there. It's covered with dirt, but again, it's probably about 3 meters across. There's the team when we went down there and photographed them. Some of these guys are working for Andy, and they're geologists doing some of the exploration work. But there's the stromatolites up close. You can see the typical layering and formation there. and they're actually quite nice. They're beautiful, but they're large. They're very big. These are some of the smaller sections that are broken off. And again, they're weathered a bit so you can see the structure better. But here's some of the big blocks of it. This is the horizontal layering of the, again, I didn't put anything for scale there, but that's probably about a yard, almost a meter across. Here's another one with horizontal layering and again, weathering. Again, these things are just breaking off and they're huge. These are oncoids. Now, oncoids, these marbly looking structures, it's thought to be that when these were still in the ocean, little bits and pieces of the stromatolite itself would break off and get rolled around in the sand, and then they'd be cemented together with the rest of the sandstone and fossil, and they turn out to be this pebbly, marbly looking structure that shows up fairly common there. So they're known as oncoids, and they range in size from pinheads to golf ball size. Lots of ripple marks. Ocean bottom, of course. There are some worm trails, very few that we saw, but I didn't show a picture of them, but they are there. And here's something that I want you to think about for a minute. And can anybody tell me what this is or guess what it is?
Rain.
Yep. Way to go, Brandon.
Yay.
So here we have preservation of a billion-year-old rainstorm. And here it is with the light sort of to the side a little bit. But also in this photograph are a couple of other structures here. You see this square shape? That's a salt crystal. The salt crystallized, then dissolved and evaporated. But this is on a huge slab, and we're trying to figure out a way to get it out of there and make it a presentation piece for the museum. But it's about 1 meter across and 1.5 meters long, and we can't find a fissure behind it, close to the surface that we might be able to split it easily. So we might have to take a huge block out of there. We have a fellow that's got a crane and stuff, but I don't want it destroyed. I want to keep as much of that block as possible. So it's going to take some doing to get it out. But anyway, I'd like to save this piece because it's pretty unique. So the final site I want to talk about a little bit is Crown Mountain. Now, Crown Mountain is held under lease, co-license lease. Used to be belonged to Teck Coal, but they leased it out to an Australian company, and the road is horrendous to get up there, but it's quite a sight. Anyway, here we are on the bad road, but I don't know the name of the mountain in front of us here, but to the left and to the right of this 180-degree picture here is Crown Mountain, and we're sort of at the base of it. So we're going to move up the hill a little bit. Here we are at the site, and it's actually a drill site that the exploration crew leveled out when they had the drill rigs in there. And on the right here is Georgia Hoffman, and she's a plant specialist from Mount Royal in Calgary. So she was there having a look at this stuff. Initially, she did the fossil assessment for some of these sites here, but we went back up there to collect. And here we are on a whole face hillside here, fossils everywhere. However, the unfortunate thing is they're mostly cycads. But you can see here, this particular slab is just loaded with them, and they're well preserved. You can see some of the veining in the leaves, and they're just packed with them. The other thing we found is log impressions. Now, I would assume that these impressions are the cycad logs, although the cycads or more of a pine cone shaped thing. So we're not exactly sure. At least I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Georgia would know, but they may be cycad stumps. They may be something else. But one thing that really caught our attention is we found a couple of these, and they look like pine cones, but they're the reproductive parts of the cycads, and they sort of look like this. So the little piece with the arrow pointing to it is what we think we found. And of course, Georgia is very interested in reproductive parts of plants because they're rare and they rarely ever preserve. So we found two of these, and they're at Mount Royal right now, but we'll get them back and probably display them at the museum here in town. So that's basically where we're at. Just as a summary, I know that I went through this presentation fairly quickly, but just as a summary, we got lots left to discover in the Ordovician, the Devonian, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. The Jurassic and Cretaceous, not a lot of animal and faunal material, but a lot of plant material. In the Jurassic, we found a lot of dinosaur tracks. I've even collected a couple myself in Sparwood over the years. And the Cretaceous, mostly ginkgos, Chekanauskia, and some other broadleaf plants. Some palm leaves, various tropical, semi-tropical plants. Anyway, many productive sites on the Bull River drainage in the Elk Valley. Lots of sites we just touched exploring. And I've got some amateurs here that just want to get out. And I know Brennan's been up there and looked at different things. And I know a couple of you other folks have been up there. We want to spend a bit more time looking at the Ordovician. Reason it's interesting is because we're looking for early chordates. And of course, the Devonian and Ordovician were, Devonian especially was the age of fishes, apparently. But we're looking for chordates if possible. And we need some professional researchers. We haven't had any professional work done up there for quite a number of years. Sorry about the phone there. We've had the ROM look at the Marble Canyon and Burgess Shales and some other stuff. Bob Gaines came down one summer and looked at a bunch of concretions from the Jurassic. He was having a grad student look at that. There were some other research projects. We did the rifle range, of course, but nothing on the Bull River in the Devonian and Ordovician. I think the last time anybody looked at the Ordovician was probably Brian Chatterton, but that was 20 years ago. So there's lots of work left to be done, and I'm hoping that some professional researchers will take up the banner and give me a call, and we'll take them up there. So with that, I'd like to leave you with questions if you have any, and if any of you are interested in looking at some of these sites, other than the Burgess Shales, of course, or Marble Canyon, you can always email me or give me a call and we'll get you up there. Now, there's a bit of a codicil with that because I need a pacemaker put in, so I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to hike with some of you guys. But if you come up, I can show you the sites and you can fill your boots. But anyway, that's my presentation. Just some of the things we've been looking at recently up there, and I'm looking forward to summer. There's quite a bit of snow up the Bull River right now, but there's some other sites that I've kind of want to do in my bucket list, and hopefully we'll get a chance to go up there. So any questions?